Welcome back to another episode of the RAG Report podcast with me, Sean Anderson, bringing you a daily bulletin show from recruitment owners, advisors, suppliers, even investors around the world who are prepared to give up some of their time to talk about their journey, their expertise and what they're doing in lockdown and how they're going to cope with the new world that we face ourselves in right now. Today, I'm super excited to be joined by Chris Evans. Chris is the CEO and founder of ECS Resourcing Group. ECS are a specialist IT recruitment and solutions provider, headquartered in the Midlands, and as a business have been going for 31 years. So I think they're the oldest standing business I've interviewed on the RAG. Chris and I met, I think it was just over a year ago, at a TRN huddle in the summer over a few beers, and we've been keeping in touch ever since, and we've been working with them recently. So a business I know quite a lot about, but not. I'm excited to find out more. Before I do, just a quick word from our sponsor today, which is Rise Recruitment Ventures. Rise are an investment business looking to help new and early stage recruitment agencies to scale and exit. So John and Alex, who head the business up, sold Liquid Personnel in 2016 for over 20 million between the two of them, having started it in a bedroom together. Hopefully they didn't sleep together, but that's a different story. But these guys have now set up a new business, which is designed to give you not only capital, but the expertise and the knowledge to build and scale an exitable business. So if that's the sort of thing that you're interested in, if you've got those growth plans, coronavirus is here, but it won't be here forever. You're going to need a plan. You might need some backing. You'll definitely need support. So get in touch via www.riserv.co.uk and they'll get you in their process ASAP. Right, back to the show. Chris, welcome to the RAG Report.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here, Sean. Thanks for the invite.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to have you on. Mate, I've done you a bit of an intro. So in true RAG Report style, my first question every day over the last 3 months has been, what's your life like right now? So just paint a picture for the listeners. What the hell is going on in your world today?
Well, we're actually, from my own personal point of view.
Personal world.
Yeah, I'm back in the office every day. Yeah. So it's sort of running normal to a certain degree from our perspective. The only thing is, I suppose, I come in and I haven't got enough work to do to keep me busy for the whole day. Which is, so you sort of end up shuffling pieces of paper around your desk, trying to make yourself look busy and stay here for as long as you can, because it feels like you should do. But it's getting back to some sort of normality. There's myself and my two co-directors, Paul and Carl, who are back in the office every day. Then I've got an admin team in the background, and they're working every day and have done throughout. And then we're down to 3 in delivery. And they've been absolutely smashing what we're getting through. So it's been slow, it's been hard, it's been really difficult, as with everybody. But I think we can start to see a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, hopefully.
Yeah, 100%. Well, you're not alone, mate. I think there's a lot of people out there that would like to be busier. There's others that are finding themselves in a stupidly busy place. What I'd love to do with you, though, is to go back a bit. So I've been dying to have this chat about your story, because when you told me over a few beers last year, I remember we had a good laugh, but there's so much in there. So, Chris, can we go back 31 years to when you started the business? Just tell us, what was you said you were 22 years old, you started ECS. What was going on in your world back then?
Well, going back before that, I suppose, I'd left school last year or so at school, just messed around. So I left there with absolutely zero. Mother and father, extremely disappointed, decided I should be retaking my O-levels at college. Yeah. So went to college, got kicked out of there after 2 weeks, were asked to leave. Right. And then went into computers on a YTS scheme. Right. And then did that for a couple of years. Well, I did that for a couple of years, and then decided that let's go down more sales route. So recruitment was something. Started working for a couple of people, and then after sort of 18 months, 2 years, thought I knew it all, and decided it would be a good time to start it by myself. So in 1989, started in a little serviced office in Solihull, and then
what? So let's just go back, because starting a business in 1989 compared to some of the people that listen or have starred on this show recently, like it's going to be different. So what sort, if you can remember, I'm asking you to think a lot here, but from an infrastructure perspective, what did you need to be a business owner in 1989? I bet there was more complexity around kit and shit that you needed to get than you do now.
Well, I'll tell you what I had. I had an Amstrad PC, which was like that wide, that deep, in black and white. And then next to it, I had a dot matrix printer that printed one line at a time.
Right.
And then I had a phone, and that was it. That was literally it. My dad was into computers a little bit and wrote me a very basic CRM, which we used for the next 5 years.
Really?
So that was my log of who I'm calling, when I'm calling, and everything else. But back then it was really weird because you'd get a job in, and the first thing you had to do was advertise it. Well, the papers weren't out for a week or whatever.
Yeah.
So then you'd have to get the CVs through in the post. And then when they came through, I'd have to type them up into like a format.
Yeah.
And then I'd have to print them off on this dot matrix printer, which used to drive me mental. And then I'd try and sell them over the phone, but you'd still have to send the CVs. And then, so you send the CVs, and then you'd have to send in.
Would you post the CVs as well?
You'd have to post the CVs. Yeah. You post the CVs out.
Surely the mail would get stuff wrong, like they wouldn't even arrive sometimes.
Well, you're trying to get these things sorted, and so we're already probably 3 or 4 weeks down the line from the moment we've actually picked the roll up, and then you have to send interview letters out to confirm them and all this sort of stuff. So everything was done via the post. And eventually you might get to an offer stage, so you're probably 6 or 8 weeks down the line, and then finally you get someone starting another month later. So whereas now if you get a job through, you can have interviews arranged within hours. But back then, no, everything was via the post.
Wow. And you were the one-man band doing all of that, or did you have did you have any admin support, or were you licking stamps and stuff?
No. I had to do all that, and then after about 6 months, I took on my first person.
What sort of fees were you doing back then? They were still sizable numbers.
Yeah, they were still we were working. I remember working at sort of 13 and 15%. But obviously the salaries were lower. So the percentages were still what they are today, really, I suppose. But the salaries were a lot lower. But then I don't have the overheads that I didn't have the overheads that I have nowadays.
And overheads would have been lower, but in 6 months you made enough that you thought about hiring someone else, right?
Yeah. So I took somebody on, and then moved into a contracted office, like a rental office, rather than a serviced office, with aspirations of grandeur, and rented this, I don't know, something like 1,000 square foot or something like that. So, we were playing football in it and all sorts of stuff, the two of us, and keeping ourselves busy. And then took on another guy. And then all of a sudden, 91, 92, recession hit. So things were going nice, and then recession hit. And that was really, really hard, that recession. And you're
only like 25 years old at that point. And
22, obviously 24.
Yeah.
So it was like all of a sudden we didn't have a contract base to fall back on. So it was all perm. All of that stopped. And then so come the July, I made the 2 guys that were working for me redundant. And on the 18th of August that year, 92, I phoned up my accountants and I phoned up the bank and said, we're closing down as of the 31st of August because we're in too much debt and I can't cope and everything else. Then the following couple of days later, I got a phone call from a client of mine. I always remember his name, Roger Billow. He was working for a company called Perro Systems in Nottingham. And he said, Chris, I need a computer operator. And I'm like, yeah, right, okay, well, I'll see what I can do. Went to my filing cabinet, see what I could find, and sent him over 2 guys. And by which stage we've got a fax machine, by the way.
Wow.
That was
things are moving.
Technology, man. I tell you what, it was unbelievable. And then he interviewed them straight away, and he said, look, I can't split them, so I'm going to take them both. And I'm like, whoa, okay. and they were £3,300 each a fee, and they paid on 7 days. So I was like, okay, hang on.
Business can
So
survive.
let's go through September. So I went through September, then October, then November, and then for the next 3 years worked in another box of an office by myself, just staring at four walls until 95, 96 when it started picking up again, and then Paul and Carl joined me over that period. And there's
how, just before we go into more detail around where you went, like, I mean, one thing that fascinates me is, like, you know, spending your early to mid 20s as not only a business owner, but basically a single business where it's just you, and then you've got a couple of people. But looking back, what do you think when you look back at that? Like, spending your 20s in isolation trying to build a business when you could have been working for a firm full of people, surrounded by people your age. Like, what do you think when you look back at that?
I don't look back on it as with any regret in a way. I did, you know, one thing I suppose when we start on, the lads were going on holidays and all this sort of stuff, and I didn't have a holiday for like 5 years.
Yeah, well, you can't.
Because couldn't afford it or didn't want to have the time off or whatever else, because I didn't want to. There was fear of failure, I suppose, as well, and so I don't look back with any regret. I think in hindsight, perhaps, 3 or 4 years or maybe a little bit longer working for somewhere else and learning more and understanding more, and instead of being the big I am and thinking I knew it all, you know, just getting a bit more knowledge of the world, I suppose, you know. But it's also, I don't know, it makes you stronger as well in a way. Makes you more.
You grow up fast.
Massively, especially when, you know, say you're 2 weeks from going under, and you know, you've got massive debt, and you're thinking, right, okay, well, I'm never going to pay that off. I can never pay that off. I'll never get a mortgage. I'll never be able to do it. You know what I mean?
God, that's
and then you know, you get a bit of luck, and that's what you need as well.
I'm interrupting today's episode to bring you a message from our sponsor, Odro, the market's leading video interview platform. But today we're not talking about making video. We're talking about an industry-wide challenge they've put together to raise money for the Teenage Cancer Trust. And it's called the Active Recruiter Challenge. So coming up on the 10th of July, which is a Friday, they are challenging recruiters all over the world to run either a 10K or a half marathon, running from your homes and choosing your route up and down the country. So everyone's getting involved. I'm personally about to get involved. I've held back because I've had some injuries, but I'm about to do it. I know my business partner and my mates are getting involved. It's £25 each, and you can nominate your friends and get your whole business, all your recruitment team included. Choose whether you want to run a half marathon or a 10K. I fancy the half, but I'm not sure I'm fit enough, but let's see. And get involved by downloading the Strava app. So they've put together a very specific Strava group that you sign up to, and then you join the group with your friends, colleagues, and all the other recruiters out there. There's going to be a runner's pack with numbers and wristbands that will be sent out by the Odro team. And you can see all the information on Odro's blog for further details. It is as close as we can get to the real thing of meeting people, being together right now. And also it's for an amazing charity. So, you know, you need to get started and do this, guys. I'm officially training. I hope you're going to be there too. All the information is going to be shared below this episode. So get involved. Back to the show. So you get to 95, 96.
Yeah.
The guys joining you. And then were they experienced people already, or were they fresh off?
No. Paul I knew from the Belfry,
right?
Because I used to have golf days there and things like that, and he was a bellboy.
Had all the potential.
Yeah, and Carl, he'll argue this point or till the cows come home. But he came from it was a company called JTR Recruitment, but we were convinced it was a suntan shop.
Recruiting tans all over the Midlands.
That's right, yeah.
Wow.
And so yeah, neither of them had any experience. So it was all. But back then it was a matter of, okay, we're banging the phones. You know, it was canvas.
Was that when you first thought, like, you know, I've got people around me now, we can go at this together?
Yeah. And then the next phase over the next few years was in 2000. we'd moved to another office in Birmingham, just outside Birmingham, and we'd probably got about, I don't know, 8 to 10 people in there, I suppose, by then. And then we opened an office in Manchester, because back then we did a lot of operations on the IT side, so there was data centres, and a lot of our clients were up that way. So we opened an office in, you'll know it, in St Anne's Square.
Yeah.
So we opened that, and Carl moved up into Manchester, and we had that office for 4 years. And then we probably expanded, and there was probably 20 odd of us in total in the 2 offices. But I think the sort of fun had gone out of it at that stage, and perhaps I think it had grown quicker than I'd grown, and quicker than the other guys had grown. So it'd gone a little bit out of control. So we said, right, okay, let's just cut this back. So we closed both offices, got rid of everybody.
So why though? What I get what you're saying, but what was going on? Like, give us a bit more detail. What was the indicators that you need to make a decision like that?
Because we were losing a bit of control of it, I suppose, and we weren't making the money we'd be making before.
Yeah.
We weren't mature enough as a business to grow and to develop those sort of numbers of people, and give them the support that they needed. Because really, at the end of the day, I'm a glorified recruitment consultant at heart, and that's all. It's just that I just sit behind a different desk. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
And I wish I was doing their job half the time. But so I felt like we were losing the control. We were losing some of the service quality, which has always been massive for me. And we make a commitment, and we were losing a bit of that anyway. And so it was like, right, we've got to cut this back. We've just got to go back to basics, and let's see what we can do, and let's rip it apart, and let's start again, sort of thing. So we closed both of the offices, opened a very small office just outside of by the NEC, and there was like 5 or 6 of us, and we worked out of there for a couple of years. And then, because we got that quality back, and then all of a sudden the clients we were working with became more demanding, because they wanted more from us. So with more, we needed more to be able to deliver that. So we needed to grow again. So we bought offices this time, and in Meriden, where we are now. And then we grew, and got to a stage that in about 5 years ago, we were probably 30 people, I guess, something like that. Not massive. But we needed to mature as a business. It was a time where perhaps I needed to grow up, I don't know, and we needed more governance, we needed more compliance, we needed more process, instead of everybody just coming in and doing their jobs and whatever. And we also had some growth plans, and we went from, in 2010, we were doing contractors then as well, and everything else, and we were probably a standard of £3 million business, I guess, turnover business. So by about 2013, 14, we'd got to about 14 mil. Yeah. 13, 14 mil. So it's developed from there. And now with that sort of maturity, we've now gone from 30 people to 30 strong, whereas we were probably 30 people with 50% of them really key. And so we've gone into a much better place now. So
we'll go into that. So if we go back a bit, like, I'm really interested in your journey, because the way you just said that, you've always been quite humble about the fact that, you enjoyed being a recruiter, you're a good recruiter, you are a glorified recruitment consultant. And I think a lot of people listening will resonate with that. Not many get into the game to be a leader and a manager and a director. Like, they get into it to make money because they like client interaction, and they're good at that in that daily, hustle and bustle and managing what's going on. So how did your journey as an individual go in that time, and what were the highs and lows for you personally?
Well, I've always thought I could do it all anyway. And everyone will tell you that as well. But I think I've learned a hell of a lot over that period of time. Yeah, the business is not about me. It never has been just about me. It's about, and it's not just sort of saying it to be cringy or whatever. It's true, and it's never been about Chris Evans riding off into the sunset with and everything else. Because if that was the case, I'd have probably done it by now. I really am passionate about what we do here, and so it's all about me giving the guys and the girls here opportunity, and then taking that opportunity and really making something with themselves, and in an environment that gives them, I don't know, a great life with it. Now I'm guessing this isn't really answering the question, because like I say, I don't really see it being about me. The highs and lows of it, look, people you see it all the time. People think that sitting behind the big desk is easy, or you can make it look easy. But you need to be a totally different type of individual to do it, and you need a very hard shell. You might be a really good recruiter, but the rest of it that comes with it, you need to be able to, you're that person that, can you sleep at night? No, well, no, because it doesn't go. But that's what I signed up for, I suppose. That's what I signed up for 30 years ago. I knew what I suppose, to a certain degree, I was getting into, and that hasn't changed. So I take the highs and the lows with thinking that, well, that's what I signed in for, and I've got to now. If there's a bad time, I'm not going to just give up.
Yeah.
And I've never been one for giving up. It's a matter of, right, we've got to dig deep here, and I don't like making any of the hard decisions that we're having to make now and we've had to make in the past, but they're for the good of the rest of the team and the business as a whole. And everybody here owns that business, really. It is them as well.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, you mentioned on the phone before we spoke about some real lows when you were one of the biggest events in the country at one point.
Oh my God.
Tell us more.
December the 24th, Christmas Eve, 2014.
Yeah. I'm
driving home, and obviously we've wrapped it all up. I'm driving home and going to be parking up and going up to the pub with the family and everybody else, And my accountant at the time phones me up, and she said, Chris, just that, we've just had £219,000 taken out of the account. And I've gone, what? She goes, yeah, £219,000. Well, I'm like, okay, quite calm about it. Okay, let me phone the bank manager. I'll sort it out. And she goes, I don't know where it's gone. It's not one of our payments. So I'm like, right, okay, let me, quite blasé, I'll phone it, I'll sort it. Phoned at the bank manager, and he's gone, right, hang on, I'm just turning around. I'm going back to the office now. This is quite serious. And I said, hang on a minute, you don't sort of give me any faith that I'm going to get this money back.
Yeah.
He goes, well, you might not. I said, what do you mean you might? I might not.
It's in my bank.
Yeah, it was, and he's gone, no, you might not. So I'm like, oh my God. So then we had to go over Christmas. Yeah. So we went through all Christmas thinking, right, there's £219,000. Now, like with any business, we don't carry cash. We're funded, and we pay it when we draw it down when we need it, etc. But we had like £100,000 in the account over at the Christmas period, based on the fact that we needed a buffer just in case contractors needed late payments or whatever.
Yeah.
So get them through Christmas. So that was fine. So I'm thinking, right, okay. So we had to go through Christmas, Boxing Day, and everything else, and then there was a weekend, and then we didn't come back to the Monday. So Monday morning, phone the bank, what's happening? And he said, well, our head of security will be phoning you shortly. So, right, okay. So he phoned, got the details, and he said, right, I'll phone you back later. That was it. So I phoned the bank manager back. I said, right, what am I going to do? I've got £250,000 worth of contractor payments going out this week to pay them for over the New Year. And I said, we've got no money. And he said, well, have you got any? And I said, what? He said, have you got any? And I said, well, yes, because if you've got some, then I can probably support you. Otherwise, you won't get any support until we find out whether someone in your business took that money. And I was like, what do you mean? So luckily I scraped some money together, and then they supported it, and we got through that payment. And what had happened was that we'd had obviously a virus come through our system. Someone had opened a PDF looking like a remittance. That had put bug into the system. So when the accountant logged on to the NatWest site, it was at the time, it sent them straight to a mirrored site, and there was someone copy coding what we were putting in, our passwords and everything else. Then they monitored our account for a month, noticed that we would make big payments on a Monday of anything around that sort of figure. So they mirrored, thinking, well, we'll get away with 219 grand. Well, I was like, oh my God. And I said, but that's your fault. We haven't done anything wrong. And also on the back of that, they authorized a single payment in dollars, which we don't do, same day payments, which we don't do, we didn't do on that sort of amount, and it took us into an overdraft, which we didn't have. Right? So that all the mistakes that they made were, that was my argument.
Yeah.
So we ended up getting it back. They never admitted that they were at fault. I ended up having meetings with their director of security, flew down from Edinburgh to here, and someone from London got the train up to come and see me here, because I was like, this is all your fault, and you need to start communicating this to your customers, because it is a disgrace what's going on.
Yeah.
But in the end, it took me a month to get it back.
What did you do? Did they give you some kind of lending facility for that?
Well, we had to try and support it through that period. But there was a month where they were going, you might not get it. You might not get it.
A final interruption to today's episode to introduce our third sponsor, Vincere. Vincere is the all-in-one CRM ATS platform built for the recruitment and staffing industry. Now, I first heard about these guys about a year ago. The amount of prospect recruitment agencies and clients I was working with that were telling me they were moving over to Vincere, I had to look into it. And what I found was a business that had a global reach with multiple offices around the world. So they've got this follow the sun methodology, which allows them to support recruitment businesses wherever you are and be in your time zone. But the technology that they've invested in is becoming a disruptor in the space. More and more recruitment businesses are doing this to give their recruiters a competitive advantage. They broke into the G2 Crowd's momentum grid as a market leader based on their reviews from their customers. So the agencies that are using this platform are raving about it. Now, if you're a RAG listener and you're thinking about changing CRM, or you're a new business looking to launch with a new CRM, then I would get in touch with these guys, because if you mention that you're a RAG listener, they're doing an amazing deal. By visiting www.vincere.io/RAG, you can get an exclusive deal which offers 2 months completely free on a 2-year commitment, or 3 months completely free on a 3-year commitment. This applies to all licenses that you've either signed up for now or that you'll add in the duration of the contract. So get on there and have a look. Finally, if you're listening and you're a recruiter and you're thinking, I want to move into a more of a business development role, and I'd like to keep hold of my recruitment knowledge. Well, these guys are recruiting for a BD person, multiple roles in both Sydney and London right now. So if you've got a strong recruitment background, you want to move into BD, and you want to work for a fast-moving tech business that's helping people like you right now, then get in touch via their website, because they're hiring today.
In the end, it took me a month to get it back.
What did you do? Did they give you some kind of lending facility for that?
Well, we had to try and support it through that period. But there was a month where they were going, you might not get it. You might not get it. And
you said it was the biggest fraudulent transaction in the UK.
It was the biggest one at that time, because we went through it all, and we obviously started Googling things, and there was other companies that had it done. And the more I was reading about it, though, the more of these people hadn't got it back, and the same thing had happened.
Oh no!
And I'm like, this is unbelievable.
We had a similar thing. We had some like 12 grand or something about a month ago. Someone phoned my business partner up, acted like Barclays. Basically told him, got through all the security on the phone. So asked him, they don't do that on the phone, do they? But
no.
They were like, you've had an Amazon, they basically said you've had a payment on Amazon of 1,200 quid. It looks suspicious, blah, blah, blah. We need to check it. So he was like, yeah, okay. And then he got a call from Barclays saying you need to come into the branch about a day later. And he's like, but you rang me yesterday. And like, we didn't ring you yesterday. You need to come into the branch. Basically, they tried to take 12 grand out after that call, but they stopped it. So the moral of the story is go to Barclays, not NatWest, right?
But at the time, the first thing I was going to do is obviously the bank were a disgrace. I was changing banks and all this sort of stuff. But then I thought, hang on a minute, no way. I've now got the securest bank account in the country, because they're going to be keeping their eye on this, you know, because it's just cost.
You're their number one client now.
That's right. Yeah.
You can't go back to the bottom.
Yeah. So,
I mean, they're the things as business owners. Like, you know, a lot of my listeners are the next generation. They're the people that they're going to start their agencies, or they would have started their agencies if it wasn't for the fucking lockdown. But they, you know, you only think of the grand gestures, the driving of nice cars, the flying away. No one tells you, oh, by the way, you might have a lot of money taken out of the bank, and then you fuck paying payments out. So you know, how do you get through things like that? You've got a family then, depending on you at Christmas. How did you mentally get through that? Have you got any? Can you remember?
I drank a lot.
That's a long way.
To be honest, you know, I don't know. It's just like you've just got to try and push it to the back of your mind and go, right, okay, looking at everything that's going on, I know we've not done anything wrong. I will get this money back. I will make sure that it doesn't affect the business. I am prepared because it's my responsibility. I am prepared to do what is needed to make sure that this business carries on.
Yeah.
And because that business is there for my family, and I wouldn't be the same person if I went, gave it up and worked for somebody else. I'm pretty much unemployable now anyway, you know, but you know, I'm happiest doing what I do.
Yeah.
So that's a massive part of that, you know, because you go home happy. You might have things on your mind, but you know, if you're that type, goes back to, if you're that type of person that you can deal with not just the great stuff, but you've got to be able to deal with the shit. And if you can deal with that, then you'll be all right. But if as soon as you start losing money, and I've seen some friends, you know, as soon as they start losing money, they panic, and that's it, end of story. They go, right, this isn't working, I'm giving up. Well, you've got to have, you're never always going to make money. There's going to be times where you lose money. There's companies, there's people that take every bit of money out of their business every year. Well, you're starting on zero every year. What's the point? You know, a couple of bad months, your history. So you'd
your business is, it's your account, right? It's your business. So it's just having money in a different place in a way. Like, I don't know. I'm definitely the reinvestment attitude to what we're doing. What I'm interested in as well is, like, how have you maintained, like, what's your secret to family life when you're running a business? So you've got kids, you've got a wife, you've got colleagues, but you've got to balance those things to be to keep both sides ticking. Have you got any advice for people there? Because a lot of people starting off have recently got married, or they're in relationships, and again, there's a hell of a lot coming down the line that you've been through.
Well, I suppose I've always sort of, the wife's put up with a lot, I'll give her that. But I've always probably set realistic expectations. So I've never tried to make her believe that, you know, it's going to be something that it's not. So there are going to be times when I am stressed. There are going to be times when I'm not in the greatest of moods. There are going to be times when I have to go to places, and I have to go to meetings and be away and all this sort of stuff. And, you know, sometimes it might look like I'm enjoying it. I try not to show her too much that I'm enjoying it. And you know, and then, but, you know, it's all for the greater good. But I think she understood that from the start. And because I never sort of made it out to be any different, and it was always going to be that way, then she understands it, and so do the kids. And then the good side comes from that, because, you know, the worst thing in the world is if you're getting home and then you're getting grief for doing your job, which is what you have to do to provide what you're providing. You know, so I think you have to the balance. There's a balance there that, look, okay, the business has got to work for you. You know, it is there to work for you as well. And you know, you cannot do 24/7 all the time. You know, you've got to trust in the people that are around you. And if you've got good people, then generally, you know, a lot of the time they make your life easy, but sometimes too easy because they feel like you're not wanted at all.
Yeah.
So, you know, but you've
Have
got
you
to
been
take
through?
that.
Have you been through that as well, where you've got? You said you're pushing paper around a bit now, but I mean, look, we're in a different world. But have you got to that point where you've almost been redundant from the day to day and thought, what am I doing?
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes, you know, you do, you know, you get, I'm still very much hands on, but there's a lot of time where you walk around the office and everyone's buzzing about whatever, and there's a new deal going through, or new clients, or someone's out with this and someone's out with that. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on? They go, we're busy. I'm like, oh, oh, come on. Well, tell me about it. You know? And they're like, what are you doing here? Will you just get out of the way? You know?
Yeah, bugger off.
But, you know, I think really from what I love from what I do as well is I try to say to people, you know, is I love to try and get what I've got in here into them and the experience that I've got and give it to them, because, you know, I'm not going to be around forever. And, you know, I'd rather them have that knowledge. So just trying to impart that into people to make them better, to make them understand that. And, you know, I suppose that makes me feel wanted as well, I suppose, because they do come to me for advice.
If you're offering value, then there's going to be a desire for that, right? What would you say? What's been the biggest change in the type of, or the people that you've hired and as time's gone on? So what was like, you know, is the recruitment consultant of today that you look for the same as the guys in 1989? Is the raw skills the same, or has it evolved?
From our perspective, yes, you know, we look for the same thing, and, you know, it's all about, what we do is not rocket science, okay? And it's not worth trying to wrap it up that it is. It's any different than that. But so you've got to we have real core values that, like I said before, you know, we make a commitment to our clients. So we don't just take on a role and go, we'll see if we can fill it, we'll fill it if we can. You know, we are making a commitment to you to make sure we do that. So the people we need, they've got to be able to build relationships. They've got to be proper people. They've got to be proper people. You know, false people, fake people, our industry's full of it. You can't be dealing with it at all. It's got to, you know, you've got to be genuine. You've got to have the right values and morals and all that sort of stuff. The rest of it we can teach. You've got to want to work hard. You've got to want to put this first to start with. You know, once you've got to a level, then you manage on outcome. Then you can have a lot more autonomy, control your own destiny a little bit more. But to start with, you've got to have those core values. You want to work hard. You've got to look after each other. You want to learn. You know, you respect people. You respect what people have got. One of the questions I always used to ask people, which is right, I don't know, was, you know, what do your parents do? What relationship you got with them? You know, and I love the answer when they'd come, you know, how they'd answer about their mom and things like that. You know, I'll always remember when Carl came for his interview. You know, wherever he was working, this suntan shop or whatever it was. He was on 50 quid a month or 50 quid a week or whatever it was. But he was giving like 25% of that to his mom for keep. You know, for
and that's the sort of,
and I'm like, wow. That's the type of person. Yeah, proper people.
It's the ethics. They've got that work ethic that they understand the value of money and what they're doing it for. Do you know what? One of the questions my old boss, Steve, who's from your way, he's from Birmingham, and again, Steve's straight as an arrow, like doesn't mince his words. My old boss trained me up. I loved working for him, and he used to ask a question: "How did you get here today?" And they go, "What?" Like you could see people's face, and you go, "Just how did you get to this interview?" Yeah. And they'd be looking at him a bit like, "What you took, like the bus? What do you?" And what he wanted was a logical order of how they, like, he wanted to know what route they took from how, and he wanted to know the detail and could they fucking remember it. And the amount of people that when you ask them, "How did you get here?" and they go, "Did I get the Central Line? Did I get the Waterloo Line?" And you're like, straight away, he's like, if you can't remember how the fuck you got to this office, how are you gonna remember the role descriptions? And I thought, such a clever question. It's so basic. But then those cognitive skills, that's not academic, that's common sense. That's being aware of your surroundings. Do you know what I mean? You've always got that one mate who you can drive to Manchester. I've got a mate who you could take him to Manchester every day for 30 years, and he still couldn't do it on his own. Like, you would not hire that guy as a recruiter. Like,
Yeah. It's like, I look at it and, you've got to be able to multitask. Apparently, we're not very good at that sort of thing, but, you've got to be able to put the phone down on something, pick up another phone with 2, 3, 4 roles going on at the same time. You've got to be aware, like you say, aware of what's going on around you. You should always have one ear open, learning what's going on in the office as well around you, listening to what other people are doing and what's going on. And if you're too, you're too focused on one thing, you don't take all that information.
No, you don't see the bigger picture.
No, so I think we've been lucky. We've got some great people, and they've got some great work ethic. Don't get me wrong, we've had some terrible ones as well. And
you can't be 30 years in the game and not hire idiots along the way. Let's talk about where you are now, Chris. So you've said you're 30 strong, but you're strong 30. Tell us where you're heading now. What's the plan?
Well, we've gone through a bit like this transition of maturing as a business over the last few years. So now we've got a lot of we've put the systems in place and the people in place and everything else. So we're a 15, 16 million pound business now, which is not massive or anything by any stretch of the imagination, but we've got capability now without changing anything to be 30. And our target market, which a lot of our business is with the big solutions businesses. So supplying them on their volume contract people and specialist and niche. And that is an area where we see some massive growth, and we're already starting to see it because they want partners rather than suppliers. We are, like I say, it goes back to that commitment thing where we know that we have got to deliver and we will deliver. And so over the next few years, look, do we go to 30 million, 35 million, whatever? Potentially, yes. But there's also, we've got to be really careful because over those last 2 or 3 years as well, you lose sight of what's real as well, which is making money. And also you lose sight of your costs if you're not careful as well. So that period, I wish now I was 20 years younger, and I wish we were in this position 20 years, same thing. And because I think the future of this business is going to be well beyond when I've gone, and it will continue to.
Are you planning to? Would you love to sell to the team, like a management buyout or something at some point?
Look, at the end of the day, if I sit there in the background and doing some consultancy 2 or 3 days a week or whatever, just to feel like I'm still wanted, then great. I don't know whether if we sold it all out, I don't know. I suppose my aspirations have changed slightly where, I think before I'm 53 now, and like I say, 30 years into this, and it feels like I've been doing it for 10 minutes. And when you're making decisions, when you're like 30, 35, you go, well, it doesn't really matter because we've got years. And then the next minute, you're going, well, hang on a minute, how much longer have I got to do this? So if someone came along and said, here's this, do you want it? Will you take it? Then I've got to be more selfish when it comes to that as we move forward. But I think the position of the business at the moment is it's in a great position, and it's got a real strength in depth. And I think we're gonna fly when we come out of this.
You strike me like you've still got the energy for it, though. Do you know what I mean? Like that. I spoke to a woman on the phone on the podcast. Sorry, a lady called Beth Armconnect Miller she supports founders in the US to sell. We had a really good conversation earlier this week, and one of the things she said was, especially with coronavirus, but not just coronavirus, but in general, when founders get to a certain point, often they don't have the energy to get to sell, and they've got this absolute euphoric moment in their head of selling their business and riding off into the sunset. But there's still work to be done, and sometimes I think you've got to check yourself and go, am I genuinely in it to do that, or do I have to have a different strategy? Whereas you strike me as you still got that 25-year-old energy.
I love it. It's like everyone here goes, when will you ever slow down? And and hopefully I won't, but the time will come, I'm sure. But no, I've got just as much energy now and passion to drive this where I believe it should have been a while ago, And the other thing is, I've seen people. The only thing I've ever seen from people who have retired is that they've done it too soon. And what would I do? I'm a control freak. I'm an egotistical maniac, and everything else that comes with the whole package. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you go, all right then. Well, you've now got nothing. You've got nothing. You've gone from that to nothing.
Well, your identity is wrapped up in the business and the people and the culture, and then you lose. Like I spoke to the guys, John and Alex from Rise. I mean, they were mid-30s when they sold, and they made a really good amount of money. They did some wonderful things for their families and stuff. And one moved to a house, one bought, one moved to Colombia and went traveling. The other one bought a property of his parents, but they both said they felt this emptiness inside, this lack of identity, because you're used to everyone being reported into you. There's this big engine. I mean, I have days at Hoxo, and there's no doubt I'm stressed, and I think to myself, it'd be easier just to work for someone else. Like, you have them days, but then you know what? It's that busyness that I actually love. And if you took that away from me, I'd be pointless.
Yeah, that's exactly the same thing. If I didn't have this, I'd be divorced very, very quickly. And it's just I would be lost at 30, 35. Those guys have got a lot of choices. I can understand their emptiness, but they've also got a lot of choices, and now they've got the opportunity with the money to make those choices and do a lot of different things.
Yeah.
So which is fantastic, and fair play to them. But no, I don't think I'm ready for the scrap heap just yet.
Final question, Chris, is about the lockdown and the changes coming. So, some businesses are newer than others. They're a bit more agile. It's easier to just remote work. And, they've been brought up on the latest technology. Whereas we've talked about the fact you had your, I can't remember what you called it, a dot mailing print machine or something. What was it called?
A dot matrix printer.
Dot matrix, right. I don't know. I mean, I'm 34.
I can still remember the noise of it going across from side to side.
I bet, yeah. I mean, who was it? Was it one of my team? Yeah. Amma sent me a screenshot. My business partner sent me a screenshot of his brother's WhatsApp, and it was basically his son found. So his brother's son, his nephew, found an old cassette.
Yeah.
Daddy, what's this weird box with sellotape inside it? And I was like, to not even know what a cassette is. But that's
I've got to tell you this. When we had some training come through one of the days. This is going back a while now, and the girls came out, and I said to one of the girls, "How was that?" and everything else, and she said, "Yeah, it was great." She goes, "But they were talking about a fax machine. What's one of them?" Right now, I've gone through the whole lifespan of the fax machine being introduced and then being made redundant. She didn't know anything about it.
Well, I never used a fax, but I remember the noise when you phoned one. It was like you got the dolphins.
That's it. Yeah.
So what does the future look like in terms of working policies and this whole remote aspect at ECS Resource?
Well, I think that we always thought that we'll always be an office-based business. As a group of people, we're a real social group of people where we enjoy ourselves a lot.
I can just tell that. I don't need.
That's never going to change.
Yeah.
But now there's a difference with you start to trust people now. You see people working at home. A lot of we're getting some people that are coming back and going, "Look, Chris, I'm more productive at home than I am in the office because of the distractions and the banter that's flying around all the time and all that sort of stuff." So moving forward, the consultants they'll still have. We've never been a massive KPI business, but they'll be measured on outcome. Yeah. So they'll have a lot more autonomy to go and do what they want to do and come in and out of the office when they want to come in and out of the office. And we'll just manage on outcome. The same with the back office. I trust everybody here 100% to actually go and do what they're supposed to do. So it will be a massively different place. But then I think on the other side of it, it might even enhance our social side of things because people will even be more up for going to, okay, we're all going to the pub on Friday or whatever, because they'll go, right, we'll make an effort to go in because we haven't seen everybody all the time.
No, I've thought about that. I've thought about that. Like I see myself doing probably 2 to 3 in the office moving forward, but fucking enjoying those days, getting getting time with people, going for dinner, going for beers, just trying to be together, and then really enjoy the day where I'm at home looking out the window and I've got that I've got clarity from the chaos. Look, I'm excited to see what happens. Obviously, we're going to be close to you anyway. But Chris, thank you, mate. Thanks so much for taking the time. I've more than anything else, I've enjoyed it. I've found it.
No, it's been good fun.
And I'm sure the people that are listening have enjoyed it. Would you be open to having a chat with anyone if they've got any questions, any support they're looking for?
Yeah, of course I am. Yeah, of course I am. No problem at all. You know that. And we'll do it again in like 6 months if we're still here.
Yeah, yeah, you will be. You will be. You might not be in the office. You might be on a beach. We'll be doing it.
No.
So we'll get you on link. Anyone who wants to reach out, give Chris a shout on LinkedIn. But Chris, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Been an absolute pleasure, Sean. Great stuff.
Yeah, you too. Guys, thank you so much for listening again. This daily show, I know it's relentless. There's a new episode every time you wake up. But I want to add value, and I want to make sure that we, not only is it serious and it's about the detail you need, but sometimes it's just relief and having a bit of fun and listening to some stories like we did today. I'll be back again tomorrow with more stories, more news. In the meantime, stay safe, and I'll see you soon.